there are so many organizations out there who are all looking to, provide the best services they can to their clients. It's a business, so people are looking to grow as well.
That's our role, is to communicate and educate and make the individual and their families feel comfortable that they are getting good, solid information to make the best decision possible to help that individual have a better life.
So if you don't know, it's always changing. The system's always updating. There's always new things to know. So I feel like families really are, they want to be in the know. They want to know what the heck's happening.
The goal is not just documentation for documentation's sake. The goal is documentation that's going to help the person have a better life. We use Field Worker to help create our monitoring tools. That's been a godsend.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. We've had attendees sign up from various parts of the country. Very excited and happy to have you here. Welcome, everybody, to the webinar. I'm very, very excited to have Bill England and Alicia Thorp from Disability Services and Advocacy here. We are in cold Princeton area, New Jersey, central New Jersey. Hopefully, wherever you are is nice and warm. But here we go. So Bill is the founder and CEO of Disability Services and Advocacy, one of the largest as well as the oldest support coordination agencies in New Jersey. They have been providing person-centered support coordination and future care planning for people with disabilities and their families in New Jersey for a very, very long time. Bill has been in the industry for a very, very long time. He began practicing support brokerage in 2001. After case management got privatized in New Jersey in 2013, DSNA became one of the first coordination agencies licensed under the new fee-for-service program in New Jersey. Bill has been the co-chair of the Support Coordination Alliance, providing a voice on policy decisions made by DDD, which is the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and other state agencies affecting people with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. DSA is also a support broker, assisting families and their members with developmental disabilities in creating future care plans, budgets, and implementing all of these under the DDD self-determination program. So essentially, Bill has tremendous experience with helping people with developmental disabilities in New Jersey. He graduated cum laude in political science from Muhlenberg College, received his MBA from Rutgers, and is a chartered life underwriter and a 3-time National Quality Award winner from the National Association of Life Underwriters. So we are very privileged to have Bill with us today, and I'm very happy we're going to have a wonderful conversation and learn a lot as well along the way. Alicia Thorp has almost 2 decades of experience in the field of therapy and support. Alicia has established a versatile and compassionate career dedicated to improving the lives of individuals in need. She began her journey as a speech-language therapist in 2005, moved into behavior therapy in 2012, and in 2017, she started stepping into support coordination as well. This is a wonderful position. It enabled her to bring her comprehensive knowledge and experience to guide clients through complex systems, state systems, connect them to resources that they need. And as a skilled support coordinator, Alicia continues to be of assistance to all these families and individuals who are navigating the intricacies of developmental disability and the government programs around it. So Alicia is committed to a lifelong learning, and her dedication to client well-being remains at the heart of her professional journey. Alicia is day-to-day working with individuals, and we are very, very glad to have Alicia with us today as well. So welcome, Bill and Alicia. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rohit Mathur, co-founder of Fieldworker AI. All the people who are attending, and please feel free to type any questions that you might have in the chat window, right? And you can direct it to host and panelists. You can direct it to everyone. We would like to keep the conversation going and answer your questions as we go along. So please feel free to ask any questions you might have. They may relate to your state, they may relate to your work, but our focus is, of course, on how do we drive client engagement. So that's the main thing. I'm going to stop sharing this screen so that you can hopefully see us better. And then we are going to launch into some questions for Bill and Alicia. Along the way, just from a housekeeping perspective, we'll pop up a couple of quizzes as well, a poll and a quiz, which will help us learn more about you and your organization. I'd really appreciate it if you can answer those. That will help us guide the questions that are coming, as well as, if there's anything that you need, we are happy to engage afterwards as well with you. If there are any specific questions that are very specific to your agency, feel free to drop me an email. I'm happy to put you in touch with Bill or Alicia or get you answers to those questions, or to me as well. So whatever work for you is good for us. Again, we're keeping it very informal. Feel free to ask us any questions you might want. So setting the stage without further ado for Bill, to start us off, Bill, could you give us a very brief overview of DSNA and the communities your team supports?
Sure, Rohit, no problem. So we perform the case management function. It's called support coordination in New Jersey for adults, most often age 21 and older, although they reduce the age for people that are continuing their education or working to 18 within the last year. But primarily it's adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities that are receiving services from the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities. And we help transition people from high school into the social service system and services within DDD. I sort of got started in the field back in 2001. I was working with MetLife, and I had a coworker who had a son with developmental disabilities, and she mentioned that the Division of Developmental Disabilities was introducing a new pilot program called Self-Determination, where they work with a privatized case manager who would help develop a plan of care and an individualized budget and help secure services for the individual, and would see the person periodically and make sure the services were working and would provide updates. All you needed was to have a training class. So having a budgeting background and sort of familiar with legal supports, I thought, well, maybe this would work for me. And I started my own company in 2003, Disability Services and Advocacy, and was active in working with about 20 consumers for about 10 years, learning about the disability system, and also being made aware that other states were privatizing the case management function. And I kept asking the state representatives at DDD when they were going to privatize it. Well, finally in 2012, they did. And I was sort of excited. I really thought that this was going to be a great opportunity. And I had a real strong idea on the way I thought support coordination should be run. Right now, we're serving over 1,500 consumers in the state. We have 56 support coordinators and a total staff of 70 employees. So that's where we are right now. The populations that we serve are primarily people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, people with autism, spina bifida, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, significant disabilities. We also have people with higher functioning autism and able to integrate in the community, but they still need some supports. We also have people with concurrent disabilities with mental illness, and that's probably one of the most challenging groups that we are dealing with. So that's basically the history where we're at.
Great, that's fantastic. Alicia, to you, from your perspectives on the front lines, what are some of the needs that you see most often among the families and individuals you support?
I think a knowledge of what is out there for their individuals, as it's a family member or a son or daughter, and having the knowledge that I know we have as an agency has been so helpful, because we're able to, if we can't find the answer ourselves, talk to somebody that is also in the agency, or we have a whole back office of a library for us to go through and find the answers. So if you don't know, I mean, it's always changing. The system's always updating. There's always new things to know. So I feel like families really are they want to be in the know. They want to know what the heck's happening and when it's changing and what they have to do and who can help them. So I feel like knowledge is a very important part of the puzzle that might not think about all the time.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And empowering the people who need the help is so important. So knowledge plays such an important part in that. Um, Bill, what do you think makes the DSNA's model of support coordination different from traditional case management? You have been such a successful agency. What makes that different? What makes you different?
I think it's a process over time, Rohit. When I started the agency, I sort of felt that I had a good understanding of the support platform in the state. And working with families for 10 years, I also realized that you really had to listen to where the family wanted to go and try to help them get there. So having that sort of understanding and combine it with, I've had some experiences in my career where I developed documentation platforms and manuals. I was a case manager for Macy's for a number of years. I was also a budget manager for their visual merchandising department. So I really had a good understanding of systems and also documentation. And I also, working with the DDD for 10 years by myself, I also realized how important it was to sort of understand this very complex system that supports people with intellectual developmental disabilities. So that sort of enabled me to start the company and to be able to do a lot of the functions myself.
Right.
When you don't have enough revenue in the beginning, you have to rely on yourself as the owner to do a lot of things. So I worked with one programmer to develop our unique payment system that we utilize with support coordinators. We pay them based on hourly pay, but then on the deliverables, every month they have a deliverable and they get a bonus because of that. That aligns our pay with their pay, which I thought was pretty unique. We're the only company that does it in the state. We developed internal processes and procedures, and I really worked hard at documenting everything. Alicia pointed out to the fact that we have a document library. I wrote all the human resource manuals. I had a internal coordinator that also worked with me on that, but I wrote most of it. And I also was the chief marketer and also did all the bank reconciliations and paid all the bills and things on that line. So having the background and the experience doing all that in prior capacities enabled me to do it until we grew large enough that I could hire staff and delegate some of that stuff. So that was one of the keys, I think, to our success in the beginning. I think the real key is that we understand how important it is to communicate and educate families on the system that they're entering, and then to provide the support that's necessary to fulfill the obligations that the state has for us. DDD has very prescripted documentation that they want us to create for the care plans that we develop. And then also to make sure that we are monitoring and getting updates on how the person is doing and incorporating that into updating the care plans. So I felt very strongly from the very beginning that we had to have a system that really adhered to what they were asking us to do and communicating those changes first to our staff, but then having our staff communicate those changes to DDD. DDD's system has evolved over the last 12 years to a paper system in the beginning, to a introduction into an online system that they call iRecord, to enhancing that system tremendously over the last 5 or 6 years. And we've had to train our staff to make sure that they were updated on how the system operated, train our staff on the requirements that they were now asking for developing the care plans. And then also making sure that if we were ever audited by DDD or Medicaid, that we could prove that we did the monitoring or the care planning that was required of us. So it's really a combination of those things and really that adherence to making sure that we are doing what is being asked for us. I like to tell our coordinators that we're communicators in chief and educators in chief. That's our role, is to communicate and educate and make the individual and their families feel comfortable that they are getting good, solid information to make the best decisions possible to help that individual have a better life. The goal is not just documentation for documentation's sake, but the goal is documentation that's going to help the person have a better life. That's the whole purpose of what we do. I'm not afraid of technology. We purchase technology all the time. We use Field Worker to help create our monitoring tools. That's been a godsend since they introduced us to them, and we began working with them about 3 or 4 years ago. It's really expedited the process. And I implemented DocuSign when the state itself had DocuSign available online just for the plan document. Of course, we had our HIPAA agreements that needed to have signatures of individuals. So I decided, hey, I'm going to spend the money and offer DocuSign directly from the company and offer. So I'm not afraid to spend money to make sure that we have tools that really can make the processing easier and better for our coordinators. I've hired IT staff. We have our own online information platform that we constantly update and provide tools to make sure that we renew the plans on time. We've had, I think in the last 4 years, we've had one plan that didn't renew on time, and we have 1,500 consumers. So that's pretty good. I meet weekly with my managers who are responsible for managing the coordinators. And I meet monthly, twice a month. I meet with all my administrative staff and team meetings. We have monthly update webinars for the entire company. And every week we do a focused training session on a topic. In fact, today I did a topic on the residential transfer process in New Jersey. So it's sort of that attention to detail, that attention to make sure that we're doing things the right way. And that's really important. We do surveys. I meet with every coordinator once a year to do skip level. We call it skip level meetings, where they can give me an update on how things are going. I have 17 questions that I ask every single year on how their manager is doing. Are we communicating effectively? Do they feel they have a good work-life balance? And all those things we're doing currently. So that gives you sort of a quick overview of what makes us unique. I will go into more detail.
Yep. And this is wonderful, Bill, because there are so many organizations out there who are all looking to provide the best services they can to their clients. That is number one. Two, it's a business, so people are looking to grow as well while providing that high quality of service. So what you described just now is wonderful knowledge for everybody to see the processes that have to be followed, and using technology as an aid, using different processes in a consistent format that'll get them where they need to be, learning from a successful agency like yours. And now in that model, Bill, a follow-up question in that, which also pertains directly to the title of the webinar, is when you think about client engagement and accountability in this context, what do these mean for you as an agency and as a leader? Ultimately, you are reliant. That is what it is all about, the clients. And what do you mean by client engagement and accountability?
So I guess in client engagement is understanding the system that we're in and figuring out how we can utilize that system and that process to help the person have a better life. So, and then communicating how working together, we can create that better life. And so you first start with, okay, what is the system that you're in? What does it provide? What does it provide to families? So in New Jersey, we have individualized budgeting, which since I started in 2001, was sort of the initial phase of individualized budgeting in the state of New Jersey. Well, it is significantly enhanced now. And so you have a system where people can, if you communicate it correctly, they can define what services they want. They get a budget based on their needs. And those needs are very similar for people with similar types of disabilities. So someone who has fewer disabilities than another person gets a smaller budget, but people with similar fewer disabilities get a comparable budget. So you have more equity in the system. And so you want to explain to the families, engagement is explaining to the families how the process works. So when you get a brand new family coming into the Division of Developmental Disabilities, they have to get assigned a support coordinator. If they choose us, we schedule a meeting to meet with the individual and their family and to describe to them the process. What is it that they're getting themselves into? and what are the supports that are available? Now, as the process has improved over the last 12 years, more and more families coming into the system are more familiar with it because they've heard from their friends about what the system was. But you have to explain what that system does and how it works. So how the system uses a survey that the Division of Developmental Disabilities administers called the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool to define the support needs of the individual. So you have the self-care support needs, you have the medical support needs, the behavioral support needs. It's 100 questions that they ask to get a feel for what it is. And based on those survey results, determine a tier for the individual. And that tier then translates into a budget. And what's good about this new system is people with similar disabilities get similar budgets, but also at the same time, the providers that deliver the services, depending on the nature of the service, for example, a day program or a group home supervised apartment, they will get paid more money based on the tier level of the individual. So you're explaining this whole process to families. So that explains the budgeting process, but there's also the care planning development process. How do we create a care plan? And DDD has very prescriptive ways on which they want a care plan to be created. They want it to be individualized. They want it to be reflective of the support needs on those various levels. They want to make sure that you're using the information from the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool, that NJCAT, as the foundation for creating the care plan. That's the information that you then work off of to actually hone in on, okay, a person needs assistance with showering. Well, what does that assistance need? Do they need verbal prompts? And is it just in turning on the water? Do they need physical assistance in setting up the shower, making sure that the soap is there, the shampoo is there? Do they need assistance in reminders and very big verbal prompts to rinse off properly? So you are really gathering the very specific details. Yes, the survey gives you a sense of what they need, but what specifically has to be done. So if I give physical assistance to somebody for mobility assistance, well, what does that look like? Are they going up a stair? Do they need to hold my arm? Do they need to hold my arm going down the stairs? Or do they use a wheelchair? Do they need assistance with transferring? And what type of assistance is that? And how is that provided? All this you are describing in your care plan in the most detailed way possible. And it's quite extensive. The amount of information that we're putting into those plans are very, very, very detailed. And one of the ways that we try to ensure quality and accountability is we have supervisors who review our care plans. Our supervisors have personalities that are very detail oriented. I actually hire people to be supervisors and exclusively supervisors. DDD didn't really set up their system that way. They set up their system that supervisors were also going to be the managers of the coordinators. I did not feel that that was the best way to do it. I felt that people that manage people should be good at managing people first. That should be their priority. Yes, they need to understand the system, the DDD system, but I didn't want them spending their time worrying about creating the proper care plan and putting the information in the right spots and making sure that all the documents and notes were uploaded and everything else. I didn't want them torn. Sure. I wanted them focused on people. I wanted them focused on our coordinators, and I wanted them in helping their coordinators, then also working directly with families. I wanted people that really had good people skills, in addition to knowledge skills. So we have a lot of managers who are parents of individuals with disabilities and are in the system themselves. And we have a lot of family members that have other family members. They may not be parents, but they have other family members that have disabilities. And so they have an awareness and a sensitivity and an ability to know how to work with people. And I felt that that was really important. And I felt it should be differentiated. We do have, when we hire people, we do personality tests. And we make sure that we hire people because this is such a very detailed system. Right. And you really have to have an attention to detail and like detail. In addition to liking people, you also have to like detail because you're documenting so much in meeting the requirements of the state that you really have to like doing that. So we make that one of the priorities that we're looking for when we hire new support coordinators, that they have an attention to detail. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is accountability in making sure that we hire the right people to do the right tasks. So that's very important. But then there is also accountability in terms of making sure that we adhere to the requirements of DDD. So every time DDD enhances the information that they want us to obtain, we communicate that information to our supervisors, to our managers, to our coordinators in our management meetings and in our monthly meetings with the coordinators so that they understand, and then it's their responsibility to communicate those changes to the individuals and the guardians. And that becomes really quite important. And if we do that well, then you develop trust. And if you develop trust, then you have engagement that's impactful. Because engagement to be impactful means that they trust you and that you do and help them accomplish what they want if it's attainable. And one of the things that's sort of nice in the state is some of our documentation, our monitoring tools and things on that line are very detailed. So we're lucky to be in a state that one funds budgets very well, but also provides documentation and tools that really give a good picture of who the person is, but also how they're doing. Those monitoring tools that we have to complete ask very detailed questions. And the questions include, what is it that you're working on? And if we are working on a particular, let's say we're looking for another group home, they're not happy with their current provider, they're looking for another group home. Well, that has to be documented in the monitoring tool and in a spot where it says, what are you currently working on? And then because of field worker, we're able to capture that information and bring it forward to the next monitoring tool. DDD uses a Word document to capture this information. It's very difficult to update a Word document and bring information over from the prior Word document into the new Word document. It doesn't happen. And people that use those Word documents, they're very arduous. But having a platform, an information platform like Field Worker, we're able to bring that information forward very easily. And that ensures that the coordinator isn't spending all their time just manipulating documents. DDD uses a Word document, I think, because they didn't want to have an online document that would take up too much space and would be difficult and slow down the entire system. So that's why they went to the Word document there. But to use it effectively, now that they're asking us to make sure we move information forward, and they're asking certain sections of the document get completed based on who you talk to. Having the ability to use software like Field Worker has really enabled us to speed up the process. And as I said before, our monitoring tools, we do have them reviewed. We have monitoring tool approvers. All our monitoring tools have been reviewed. When they were just plain Word documents before they were in Field Worker, our monitoring tool approvers had to spend a lot more time reviewing the monitoring tool than they do now because of Field Worker. It's made a much better platform. And we also require a proof of contact, accountability again. We require a proof of contact on our monitoring tools. So they have to prove if they're doing a monthly monitoring tool where all is required is a phone call, well, they have to show us what phone number they called and how long they spoke. They take screenshots off their phone and they upload it, and that gets uploaded to Field Worker, and by monitoring tool approvers look for that document. They look at it, see how much time. There's a requirement, a minimum of 3 minutes. If it's a visit, the visit also has a sign-in sheet, and those sign-in sheets have to be completed. And I will say, we've caught, and I don't want it to be punitive, but sometimes you have to do audits. You have to make sure things are done. And we've caught a couple of people that were duplicating the monitoring tool and not visiting the people. And we caught them, and we fired the coordinators. That protects us. If Medicaid came in and audited us, we save all our monitoring tools, all our proof of documentations in our SharePoint system. We use SharePoint, and we use Office 365 as our information platform. We utilize the SharePoint platform. Every coordinator has their own folder. Within that folder is their planning folder, and within that folder are their MTs, their plan documents. We have a whole system where they save their information, and if we get audited, we can provide proof that we delivered the documents and that we did the monitoring that was required. So accountability is really important. Engagement is really important. Helping people improve their lives is really important. And we do surveys to see if people feel that they understand the system. We ask them specific questions. If they've been exposed to platforms outside of DDD that we know provide support. We have Medicaid platform that provides personal preference program, which is our individualized budgeting platform through Medicaid for people for ADL skilled needs and physical disabilities. They can get PCA, personal care assistance services, through Medicaid. So we want to make sure that we're making the families aware that that is available to them. It's outside of DDD, but we want to make sure that they are aware of all those things. And we ask these questions in the surveys to make sure that they're aware and knowledgeable of all the different services. So that gives you a sense of it. I think that's good enough.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Bill. That is, thank you so much for the details. That is fantastic, actually. And Alicia, for you, would love to hear an example from you of, what does this client engagement mean to you? Or, for example, something catching early on your day-to-day client engagement, which really or staying connected with the individual and families made a significant difference to your clients.
Yeah, so just going back to, I know what Bill said about Field Worker and having the ability to go from month to month with like a follow-up tool. So you know what you talked about last month with the family or the provider. So as far as getting the information that the individual's needing, I feel like that helps us be more conversational with our families, which builds trust, and you're building more communication, and it's not just a transaction. Sometimes the monitoring could just be asking questions and then you move on to the next thing, but you're not really talking about what the needs were from 30 or 15 days ago. So making sure that you're doing the follow-ups, you're having conversations. It helps you pick up on these different things that family members say. Maybe there's somebody who, they need a lift or like a Hoyer lift or something like that, and the remote's dying. And they're like, oh, well, if your remote dies, you're not going to be able to use it. But you talked about that, and I heard you because we were having a conversation. So here's how we can provide you with, say, a goods and service form to to get that covered and start early so that you're not waiting until the very last minute for a service or something to happen. Or like Bill had said, if somebody's in a day program or a residential facility that they're just not doing very well in, and you're having conversations with families, you're able to maybe share some insight and provide information to these families, and they trust you and they're going to look into other things. Like we cannot, obviously as a support coordination agency and the support coordinators, we can't tell you where to go or what to do, but we have resources. So if we build that rapport, then you're going to be able to do your own research and find a better fit, say if it is for switching a provider or something along those lines. So there's a lot of different things, whether like it's just a tool someone's needing, whether maybe a ramp is, they need a ramp or something like that, or if they need a new program altogether. So I feel like having the follow-up conversations versus just the transactional monitoring month to month makes a big deal. And we have to know where our clients live. So for our agency, we're able to have support coordinators in the area in which we serve our clients. So I'm in South Jersey. I'm not finding anybody in North Jersey something because I don't know anything about it. Sure. So I think that's also really important and a really big thing to make sure your families are aware of, because then I can go and visit these clients and it creates that, again, accountability. You're showing up, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and visiting your families or your clients in the field, out in the community, wherever they are. And I think that's a really big deal too. And again, builds that rapport, builds that trust, and then you can just continue to help and serve.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic real life experience, Alicia. And on that same note, when things get really busy for you, what are some of the obstacles that you encounter? How do you navigate them? I mean, I know you guys are dealing with large caseloads, so many things to do. How do you manage that? What are the tools that help you in this whole process?
So I think it's focusing in on what you want to accomplish. And I just want to talk just a second about engagement too. One of the things that really enhances our engagement is that our coordinators are full service coordinators. We don't split up the responsibility of plan writing and plan development from monitoring. Some agencies in New Jersey do that, and we don't do that. And I think that enhances that engagement process because they're seeing that one point of contact. The family is seeing that one point of contact over time and develop a relationship and a comfort level with that coordinator. And that coordinator is seeing the individual on a daily or on a monthly basis, and sometimes more frequently if there's issues that have to be addressed. So that, again, enhances that engagement with the company, with the individual. And so I do think that is really important. And I just wanted to point that out.
On that note, can you share an example where this consistent engagement led to a better outcome
there's a couple things. Our coordinators do quarterly visits, and we do quarterly visits. And because I have accountability in the place, I know that they go, and we get comments from our coordinators, from our managers, that they will go to a group home, and the group home managers will say, "Gosh, you're like the only coordinator that we ever see." And we're like, "Oh my Lord, that is not good." That is not good in a system where people are supposed to be visiting. And this is where you come back to accountability and then having engagement. So our coordinators will go and do a visit, and they, if the individual that they're seeing, says, "Oh, I really don't have a lot of food in my refrigerator," and the coordinator will go, "Well, why don't you open up your refrigerator and let me see?" And they'll see, maybe a loaf of bread in there or very little in there, maybe some waters and a loaf of bread. And, immediately, the neglect finder goes up and we're like, "Oh my gosh, this is not good." And of course, then we have to write an incident report it to the provider, let them know, write the incident report, have it go to DDD. But that ensures that is addressed and that food is then, brought into that group home. We've also had tragic incidences, but it's another example of it, Our coordinators were visiting a mother who took their son out of the group home, and the mother was elderly. And when we did the visit with the mother, we were concerned about the mother maybe having some form of dementia. And we called APS, Adult Protective Services, which is the name of the agency that provides adult protection in New Jersey. And they did a visit. We attended the visit. We expressed our concerns, gave examples of why we felt that there was an issue. Unfortunately, APS did not do anything about it. And then, about 2 months later, unfortunately and tragically, the house burned down, and both the parent and our client, our individual, passed away. Now, we did everything that we were supposed to do, And there was no pushback when we wrote the incident report. We didn't get in trouble. We documented exactly what we tried to do to get help in the situation, but we protected ourselves. And that's really important. It's doing the right thing, right? That's what we want our coordinators to do. And that's the type of engagement to help protect the individual. That's an example of engagement, protecting the individual, making sure that there's food in the home, making sure that the client is protected, making sure that we're addressing the need that may be other needs that may be occurring, that they recently lost their Medicaid or it's going to be terminating, and making sure the family gets their paperwork in to make sure that the Medicaid is renewed or gets reinstated. These are all the things, are specific examples of, what we try to do to help the individual.
Fantastic. Bill, we have probably time for a couple more questions before we hit the end top of the hour, our time allocated. And for the audience as well, please feel free. I've got a few questions. I'm going to intersperse them in here as well, so that your questions get answered as well. But one thing, Bill, which is important is, and quickly, if you can tell, for agencies, there are so many agencies who are attending here who are looking to improve their case management model. What guidance, what are some of the top tips you could offer around building a culture of engagement and accountability? I know you've taken an example of what you've done, but if there are a couple of things that you could pick up which are most important from your perspective.
Okay, so, and agencies, I think what I would focus on is hiring the right staff, getting the right controls in place to monitor their performance, and to make sure that you're addressing and doing everything you can to make their work easier. Case management in New Jersey is very detailed. There's a lot of moving parts. There's multiple state agencies in addition to New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities that are providing supports, from utility supports, the Department of Labor supports to help people secure jobs. There's multiple departments and agencies. And so making sure that the coordinators are educated and that you're hiring coordinators that want to do this type of work. And then holding people accountable. I mean, we have a remediation process. If we see that a coordinator is having problems, the manager is seeing that the plan writing is not at the level that they want to see, and they make recommendations and suggestions, and it's still not getting better. The coordinator may be very disorganized and is very late in renewing their plans. We're getting complaints about the coordinator, and maybe they're losing consumers. Or we hear the explanations that they give. The manager attends meetings, joint meetings, and the explanations the coordinator gives about the services aren't correct. So we put people in remediation. And I would say over time, initially, we put people in remediation, they would get better. And then a year or two later, they'd fall back again. And we go through the whole remediation process again. And it took us a while to say, hey, this isn't working. And we basically put one remediation process. We put a change in policy, one remediation process. But then if you fall back again, we can terminate you at will. And that's right into our human resource policies. So having the systems in place, the human resource tools in place to remove people that aren't doing the job to the level that you want, and not being afraid to do that. Not being afraid to spend money, to give tools. That would be another suggestion I would give agencies in other states. I would also encourage advocacy to talk with families, to advocate directly, to get the system improved. Families in New Jersey really worked hard to have a fiscal intermediary system where non-DDD, non-Medicaid providers could get reimbursed through a fiscal intermediary for goods and services. That's what we call it in the community. And that advocacy has really opened up a whole plethora of additional providers that enable families to hire staff using the fiscal intermediary and paying a higher wage. That's been very helpful. Finding providers that provide services in the community, like classes, music lessons, socialization classes, to help train people on how to develop relationships and things along that line. There's a whole host of classes that and opportunities, yoga, gym memberships that integrate people with disabilities in their community. And that was advocated by individuals and families. So encouraging families to learn the advocacy networks within your state, to push to get greater amount of choice, really goes a long way to having a better system. But in addition, it's managing and really working hard at managing your people and making sure that the plans that you create, the coordinators that you provide are educated, that they write good plans, that they monitor and do what's necessary to improve the life of the individual. All those things, if you focus that way, you will have a better agency and you will succeed.
Yeah. Fantastic, Bill. Thank you. Alicia, one last question to you as well. You use technology, and what technology features have made and what kind of impact have they had on how you manage your caseload?
I think having the technology that is going to create more ease as a support coordinator, you're going to be more willing to adapt to all the changes that are coming from other places, right? So that's a really important thing to remember, is that things are going to change. And if you're not adaptable, you're not going to be able to really keep up. And I just wanted to also say too, one of the things that's important as far as being able to be seen and having your agency be above the rest is because you have to be able to be willing to go find people, so we have our Facebook page, we're growing our social media, but you have to be willing to go out and connect and find more than just what you're hearing in your community. So being able to be adaptable with the whatever you're on, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, having that and being in communication outside of your own agency is super important. And then being able to use the tools like Field Worker that captures the information for you so that you can have these conversations with your families on a more personal level. You're kind of expanding your reach in that way by just making sure you're involved and you're doing the best you can to stay on top of the ever-changing, society. Basically, things are always moving and shifting. So using the tools that keep you in front of other people, such as social media and things along those lines, and then using a platform such as Field Worker that keeps you in conversations because it's capturing the, whatever your notes are that you're writing in. It's a really big deal to stay on top of everything that you have as a caseload.
I mean that is fantastic, Alicia, and advice for newer coordinators or newer case managers who are on the call or in the audience as well. Good habits to develop, and all these things to focus on. This is very, very important. Again, focusing on client engagement, bringing in the accountability through the documentation, being on social media, communicating, and as Bill pointed out, actually going out and making the visits and tracking that information is essentially key to effective and strong case management. So that is just absolutely wonderful. We are actually 5 minutes over. Bill, do you have any closing statement, closing message to give before we
I
wrap
do
up?
want to say that one other conceptual point that I have with this is that this is a team effort. Helping people with disabilities is a team effort. It involves, of course, the individual, their family, their guardian, but the support coordinator, the support coordination agency, but it also involves your government stakeholders, the staff of DDD, the providers that are delivering the services. All of us have to work together to improve the person's life. If things aren't working, we have to have meetings to discuss how to make it better. If things continue to not work, well, then we have to work to maybe find different providers or different services. But that's the external team. You also have an internal team, and the internal team is your organization. So it's your frontline person, your support coordinator. It's your support coordination manager that is there to assist them and to train the new coordinators that are under them. It's your supervisors who are reviewing the plans. It's your monitoring tool approvers that are reviewing the MT documents. It's your marketing coordinator that is helping with the marketing of the company so we have new consumers. It's your human resources staff and the benefits that you're going to provide your coordinators. We offer health insurance. We offer a 401k. Didn't do it in the beginning. You know, it happened over time as we grew and we're able to do it. But all those things, all that team effort, all those people are important to having a good organization.
Bill, I'll one more. There are a lot of people who join.
That we're supporting the individual. So you have your internal team, and each role has a responsibility, and you have an external team, and it's important that both work together.
Perfect, Bill. Sorry, I interrupted, but one last thing which I'll ask you is as well. You know, you work with providers, right? You are the coordinators. You're working with providers who are providing the services. There are a lot of providers who are also interested in understanding how you work best together. Is there something you want to say to providers in the audience as to how do you provide the best service in conjunction with them?
Well, Alicia, maybe you can talk about that a little bit because you work directly with the providers now. I'm a little bit more removed.
That's fine. I think that being able to show up and be on the same page as a provider is important. I've heard stories of a support coordinator going in and just being like, this is my person. I don't, have time to talk to you. And they don't build the relationship. And again, it goes back to communication. It goes back to being together for the individual. This is not about me. This is not about the provider. It is about what we can do together to serve our clients. And coming from that angle is super important when you're talking to a support coordinator. So if you have somebody who was hired because they just needed a job versus having to go through the training and having Bill does, like he said, all the things in the very beginning that we have to do in order to be hired for this position. Maybe they don't have good communication skills or attention to detail, and they're not talking to the providers as much as they should, and they're not listening as much as they should. I think that's a big deal. So being able to create that connection with your provider and the staff that work with your individuals is very important, or they're not going to be able to follow the planning tools that you have written out with like the PCPT that we have. Then there's the things that they can and can't do that are in the NJISP, and just creating more independence for the individual. So if you're not able to talk to the provider, they might not even go and read what happened at a meeting that's going to actually serve the individual that you talked about at the meeting, so there's no follow through. So making sure you're keeping good communication, you're being respectful, you're hearing what they're saying so that they hear what you say, and then you're able to work together to serve the individual. Again, it's not about me. It's not about the provider. It's about what is best for the individuals that we serve.
And I mean, that is amazing what you said, Alicia, because this applies to case management in general. It's not just about support coordination, because wherever there is case management, and many case management agencies and their employees are in the audience, they are, at the end of the day, our job is to make sure that the right service is coming to the individual. The individual is the center of focus, and wherever those services are coming from, we're all on the same team to make it happen.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. We've gone way over time. I have a whole lot of other questions. We didn't get to it. I apologize. We didn't even get to all the audience questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my email address here to everybody. If you have any further questions for Bill or Alicia or myself, please reach out to me. I've put in my email address, and I will make sure those questions get to them and get answered as well. And I will do the coordination with anybody in the audience who wants to connect. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And thank you so much, Bill and Alicia, for a wonderful, engaging session. And we hope to meet again. We had such a great time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.